Arrakis, Dune, Desert Planet. Hey guys, Dan here from TheGamerShelter, and I recently had the chance to take part in the last closed beta weekend for Dune Awakening before release, thanks to Funcom opening it up to anyone who pre-ordered. And I'm here to give you my unfiltered, honest thoughts on everything I saw in my time with the game. If you're undecided on your purchase, and you are just looking for a quick push in either direction, I'll say this. Dune Awakening is buggy. It's glitchy, and some of its mechanics definitely need tweaking. But none of that has impacted my enjoyment of the game. I would strongly recommend checking out this game if you're a fan of either survival crafting games or the Dune universe in general, because it absolutely nails both. There is nothing negative in the game that I've encountered so far that can't be quickly ironed out, and I trust the passion of the developers here to do just that. For everyone who wants a more in-depth analysis, I will break down everything I saw while playing over the weekend. But, quick rundown on my history with Dune, so my biases are on the table. I've been a massive Dune fan for maybe 7 years now. I watched the David Lynch movie and actually really liked it, as absolutely insane as that movie is, and I found myself very into the lore of the world crafted by Frank Herbert. So I read the first book and loved it even more. And then, obviously, the two Denis Villeneuve movies released and are just breathtaking cinema. I also play the RTS Dune Spice Wars, and two of my favorite board games of all time are Dune Imperium and Dune from Gale Force 9, or Big Boy Dune, as I affectionately call it. By the way, for perspective, I own around 200 board games and have played many, many more, so yeah, I love this universe, and ever since this game was announced, I have been patiently waiting to get my hands on it. So, what is Dune Awakening? Well, it's a hardcore survival RPG from Funcom, the developers of Conan Exiles and the producers of the previously mentioned Dune Spice Wars. They have obviously done some other things, but those are the notable ones to me. Now, some of you may be thinking, Funcom isn't marketing this as a hardcore survival, and you'd be right, but after playing it, I think this game is much more hardcore than it's letting on, and is probably part of the reason they dropped MMO from its marketing campaign. In Dune Awakening, you're going to have to watch how long you stay in the sun to avoid sunstroke, make sure you have plenty of water on you or you'll begin to lose health from dehydration, traverse huge stretches of desert where every noise you make could attract a sandworm that will actively chase you down to Mordor you, find shelter to avoid the Coriolis storms that move from different zones and will disintegrate structures that aren't shielded, as well as you, all while just trying to keep your health and energy up like any normal game with enemies shooting and stabbing you. The survival here is no joke. You'll be slurping water from flower petals, running from shade to shade from the mountains, and using abilities and sandbikes to traverse the open sand. It's pretty darn hardcore. Oh, and if you are Mordored by either the worm or the storm, you permanently lose everything you had on you. Otherwise, like if you die to an enemy, you can go back and loot your body. Dune Awakening also features some very advanced base building, as well as quests and a storyline involving the warring factions on Arrakis, and the late game is supposed to heavily focus on both PvP and auction house manipulation. As a fan of Dune, the story here is very interesting due to its potential. The basic premise of the game, as you've probably seen in the trailers, is what if Lady Jessica had obeyed her Bene Gesserit sisters and gave birth to a daughter instead of a son? In this universe, Paul Atreides and everything caused by his actions would never exist. The game takes place in this alternate history version of Dune that seems to be a vision that Paul, as the Kwisatz Haderach in his universe, has had while searching his mind for a possible future where the fallout of his actions never happened. So here we are in the world of Dune, able to meet these famous characters in the book, some that may have even died early on in the main canon, and hear about what might have become of others if things had turned out differently. I've already heard multiple characters he mentioned, from Duke Leto and Liet Kynes to dirty little Piter himself, and I'm curious about how they'll work in the Fremen side of things, like Stilgar or Chani. Is Chani gonna have someone to hit on as hard as you guys hit the like button this time? I'm extremely excited to see. Time for Hi, welcome to the longest section of the video, because spoiler alert, I loved this game. Dune Awakening has been a blast to sit and play. Even though I was only able to get about 16 hours in throughout the beta weekend, I legitimately loved every bit of it. Now, there are flaws, and I'll cover some of them in the later sections, but for now, they're good. Dune Awakening introduces you to the world of Frank Herbert's Dune in really the only way possible. Having your character creation be while talking to the Reverend Mother and going through the Gom Jabbar test. During this intro, the game introduces you to its alternate history concept and allows you to make decisions about your character's backstory that will shape your dialogue tree options, your starting emote, and your starting class and abilities. It's important to note here that all the classes and abilities in the game are eventually unlockable and also interchangeable, so your choice is only important temporarily, as all you have to do to start leveling any other class is locate that class trainer in the world and do a short questline for them. What I've seen some people say is that starting as Bene Gesserit or Mentat might be smart if you have interest in playing them, because you don't find their trainer for quite a while into the game. And while I just chose Bene Gesserit out of interest, I can confirm that in my 16 hours, I only found 2 other trainers, the Planetologist and the Trooper, both of which are found just by following the main storyline. Having mobility immediately feels huge in this game, so starting as the Bene Gesserit and then rushing the Trooper for the grappling hook and the Planetologist for the suspensor pad worked out for me and felt amazing to use in tandem to get around. Using the Bene Gesserit's Bindu Sprint, for example, to rush across the sand where the storm could chase me felt really incredible. While on the topic of mobility, Dune Awakening also follows a recent trend in gaming to have free climb built in at the cost of stamina drain. Think Breath of the Wild, or if you've seen my other video recently, Pantheon Rise of the Fallen. Scaling cliffs like this just feels great in games, and I could see if they added a Fremen class down the line, that they could like scale faster due to a passive or something, since they're so in tune to the desert, you know? Anyway, the point is the mobility in this game feels fantastic, as hopefully some of these clips I'm recording here show you. The map design is also very interesting. When you first look at it, you'd be forgiven for thinking it kind of just looks like they slapped a bunch of mountains down everywhere and then selected the paint bucket tool, set it to stand, and clicked. But I'm here to tell you, and hopefully show you a bit, that that is clearly not the case. Almost all the mountains and pre-built structures in the game have clearly been meticulously placed to make sense. From buildings not facing the rising and setting of the sun, to almost every cool landmark having a beautiful artistic angle you can approach it from, and even the distance between certain landmarks being the exact distance needed for the worm to scare you, but not actually begin chasing you. Or in some cases, begin chasing you, but not actually be able to catch you, just to show you the developers can make things that distance to prepare you for later in the deep desert. As hinted at a minute ago, there is a day-night cycle. There are a few major changes to the game that happen from this that are obvious, and a few smaller ones, including things I haven't gotten to far enough into the game yet to know. I'm sure I haven't seen everything. The big ones are, you don't have to worry about sunstroke anymore, obviously, as the sun is down. There are night patrol ships with spotlights down from the Emperor, and if they spot you, they'll send down the Emperor's Sardaukar, which is a more elite unit, and early game is going to be extremely difficult to take down. So it just, again, gives you something to look out for while you're out exploring at night. And then also, the flowers in the morning will be covered in a dew that you can collect and store for later use if you have special equipment. I think the day-night cycle here is another great example of the care taken into designing this game. Many game developers throw in a day-night cycle because it's cool and players tend to react positively to it. But here, Funcom said, sure, we'll add a day-night cycle, but instead of stopping there, they have worked to make it both fit into the survival game they're designing and also the Dune universe, where it feels like the planet is always doing something to try to end you. They've implemented it really well here. I'm not going to claim to be an expert on crafting and resource management and base building in games or anything like that, but what I will tell you is that those systems work fantastically here. Claiming land is easy and almost seamless. You can also get a pretty massive space to build in, which is one of the benefits of having a huge world with only 40 people per server. Once you claim your land with your sub-fief, you can do pretty much anything you want in it, and the building is quick and easy, with resources being very easy to come by, as long as you're willing to do some light exploring and maybe build your base in a resource-rich environment. There are structural limitations, but they're pretty lenient. You can't build a giant floating wall or anything like that, right? You need supports. I think one of the most underrated, or at least talked about mechanics in the game, is the piece picker button on the construction tool. When you put your construction tool on the piece picker and click on a structure like a wall or a door or a roof, it will take you to the page in your crafting set that has all the pieces of that category. So like at one point I was building a line of windows, and when I selected with the piece picker, it showed me all the walls possible to build that I currently had, including a corner window that I didn't even know was in the game as an option. It's very well thought out and implemented. Now, obviously, we can't talk about the resource gathering and crafting without mentioning the little mini-game they have where you scan resources with your cut array and it reveals weak points that if you mine along, it will break them faster. this is awesome. People that know me know that I love little mini games in games that make you like pay attention to stuff more. But I should point out that I'm pretty sure you can just ignore this and hold the ray on the resource that will break eventually, almost like the resource has a life total. But using your tool does take battery, so doing it this way would definitely slow you down a lot, as you'd have to wait for your battery recharge. It does recharge quickly. It's not like you're going to be constantly out of energy or anything, but it's just not worth it to not cut along those lines, you know? Once you get later in the game, you will begin running out of storage space quickly, so chests in your base, litter johns in your backpack for excess water, and storage units on your sandbike and ornithopter are all going to be important down the road. Yeah, you get to drive vehicles like ornithopters, by the way. I'm not going to go into them. Suffice it to say, the sandbike feels great to use in-game, and you wind up building a tool that can store vehicles on your belt for when you go like inside buildings. You don't want to risk leaving your vehicle out in the, you know, elements of nature. It's very cool. The graphics are good, the voice acting's good, the music and audio so far are really good. I honestly do have very few complaints so far on the normal major things the game is trying to do. But while I mostly have good things to say, it's not perfect. As you've probably seen in my footage and have definitely heard online, the game is kind of a buggy mess. Now, I'm not by any means saying it's unplayable, obviously, but there are a lot of little things that need work. The suspensor pad ability, while extremely fun to use, just doesn't work sometimes. You have to stay perfectly in the center of it or it doesn't read you, and you'll fall back down to the bottom. Hell, sometimes it just doesn't read you at all from the start, and you just get stuck in the ground for a second. The free climbing system freaks out sometimes and doesn't know what you're trying to do. I've never had this be a problem, I just keep climbing, but your body will freak out for a moment while your character realigns itself with what up is. My brother also had a hilarious glitch in the game with his Mentap Poison Mine ability, where when he put it down, it would instantly explode in his face and only poison him and none of the enemies around him. It was absolutely hilarious, and I just kept watching him poison himself over and over again. I loved it. That's one of those times where you kind of want to say it's a feature, not a bug, right? I love it. But also, that was in the last 2 hours of the beta, and the servers were kind of glitching like crazy from anyway as they were shutting down, so I don't know if that's actually glitching the game, or if it was just during those like 2 hours. I have a minor personal annoyance with the way the quest tracking works in the game. Many quests will have multiple steps to complete. For example, part of one quest might say deliver a sandbike tire, and then part 2 might be deliver a sandbike engine. Well, here's the thing. If you track the quest where it shows up on your screen, it only shows the next step of the quest on your screen. This means there were multiple times when I crossed the entire desert to deliver something, only to learn I needed to deliver something else next that I also had in a chest at my base. Now, don't get me wrong, I understand that if you look at your actual quest journal when you pause the game, you can see all the steps right there and you can plan ahead. It just... Only tracking part of the quest on your screen seems like a very strange move and can cause pointless frustration for your players. Okay, I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about the melee combat of Dune Awakening. I'll begin by saying I didn't have nearly as big an issue as other people online did, but it is definitely in need of some work. I honestly believe the melee here would be improved by like 80% if they just introduced a hard lock system. Currently, there's no lock-on in the game. When you enter combat with someone and have a melee weapon equipped, the game kind of has a soft lock system where your character will face and swing towards the closest enemy, but this just isn't good enough, and it can glitch out if you have like multiple enemies close to you. It makes the melee not have that cool skill-based feeling they're going for here. Having a hard lock system for melee would drastically improve the rhythm of combat and make switching targets and dodging feel much better to pull off. There will, of course, then need to be things that break target lock. The easiest things I can think of off the top of my head is obviously if you're staggered, maybe if you're poisoned by an enemy ability, if the enemy you're fighting dodges, that could break their lock. That makes sense to me. Maybe if you personally run out of your shield or energy, you can't lock on until they recharge. I don't know. That's for the designers to work on, but Funcom, please test a hard lock system. I promise it will improve the game. I'll end the negative section here with a fear I have. I am scared of how the PvP is going to be with the Unchained leveling system. What I mean by that is, if everyone can have every ability in the game, it just seems like two bad things are going to happen inevitably. First of all, every single player will just have the best meta build equipped instead of having to use the best build they can within their class and rely on friends and teammates to fill in the rest. Every game where every ability can be unlocked winds up turning into everyone using the exact same build as each other, because it's clearly the best build. Why wouldn't you? So that always worries me with this type of leveling system, especially with PvP. And secondly, the fact that you can swap abilities in and out on the fly as long as they're not on cooldown just sends horrible images to my head of hardcore PvP players switching abilities in the middle of combat to perfectly counter everything you're doing. I hate unchained leveling systems. I think they always lead to balancing problems. It's just, how are you going to perfectly balance 100 abilities that anyone can use in any combination? It just scares me a lot. I wish I could speak more on the PvP system in general, but I just didn't have a chance to mess with it, as it seems like more of a late game part of Dune. I hope it's fun. I don't know. And that leads us to... yeah, this is just a picture of Baron Harkonnen. So, what do you like and dislike about what you've seen and heard so far for Dune Awakening? Is there anything that truly excites you, or maybe like me with the leveling system, you have something you fear? If so, remember, you must not fear. Fear is the mind killer. Fear is the little death that brings total obliteration. You will face your fear. You will permit it to pass over you and through you. And when it has gone past, you will turn the inner eye to see its path. Where the fear has gone, there will be nothing. Only you will remain. And hopefully you pick up Dune Awakening and join me in the desert. Let me know in the comments if there's anything you want, like any questions you have about the game that maybe I can answer. Thank you so much, guys, for watching. I hope you found something useful and entertaining in this video. I'll mention one last time to like the video if you enjoyed it, and think about hitting that subscribe button for more Dune Awakening content from me in the future. Cheers, guys. May thy knives chip and shatter.